Hey guys, what is up? It's been a little while. Hope you've been well. Welcome back to the channel. A couple of weeks since I last uploaded. A lot of stuff's been going on. I'm going to update you in the very next video on this channel. Basically switching up locations a little bit and also switching up the style of this channel. I'm going to start showing a lot more real content. I love working here in the office doing tutorials, but I want to get out there and start showing you real clients behind the scenes, real interviews, real sales calls, real projects, all these things that I see in the comments that you guys want to see and that I know would help you a lot. So we have that coming up really, really soon. I'll get into it in the very next video. For this video though, really, really cool video. Basically very fast. I run a private coaching program for the last year and a half. A lot of students in there. I don't post about it too much on the YouTube channel, but you can find out about it in the link below if you want. But basically, we do a lot of things in that program. One of the things that we do is we get in outside experts a couple of times a month. So we had Ben Burns from The Futur recently, and just this last week, we had Chris from A Nerd's World. So he jumped on for an hour, questions and answers, and he gave us tons and tons of useful advice. So if you don't know this guy, and you probably do know this guy, he runs a really good YouTube channel on here as well with web design tips. He has done really, really well, 7-figure web design business in Toronto, and he just gave tons of advice on selling, on scaling, getting started, first few clients, how to grow the business, the right mindset, that kind of hustle, entrepreneurship attitude, all these sort of things. So what I suggest for this video, grab a piece of paper, grab a pen, go through this thing. You're going to find loads of useful advice, no matter what stage you're at, but in particular, if you're just getting started, loads of good advice on where to take your web design business and how to grow it. So really, really cool. Check it out. Any questions on this video or anything else, post up down below and check out that future content that's coming pretty soon. Really hope that you enjoy this one. Let's get into it. So Chris, do you want to jump in, introduce yourself, and we can get this going? Cheers.
Yeah, sure. So my name's Chris. I'm the owner and co-founder of A Nerd's World. We started a web development business in sort of a different manner and decided to open retail stores in downtown Toronto to sort of do everything that the competition wasn't doing. And I've been mildly successful. So I guess that's as much as I need for an intro this morning. Let me know how we can start the conversation.
Cool, man. So I really enjoyed our chat the last time, and a big part of it that I really enjoyed was your background and just like the hustle and everything behind the business. So I guess if you want to start off, just how you got into it in the first place, how you got it going, so successful in a short amount of time, it seems.
Yeah, see, for me, it didn't seem like it was a short amount of time because I've been doing this for over 10 years, right? About 8 years ago, we decided to make it our full-time career opposed to like a part-time hobby experiment. I mean, until we actually opened a physical location, as hard or as much effort as I thought I was putting into it, I wasn't truly putting in all my passion. I was doing side jobs and etc. But 8 years ago, we made the plunge and risked all our life savings into opening a retail store. And at that point is when we really needed to put all the effort. So, I mean, the first year was extremely tough, like little sleep to no sleep, open 7 days a week. Most nights our store was open till midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning. Like it's unheard of. But like I wasn't ready to fail kind of thing. So it didn't come easy. But in year 2, we started to grow. Year 3, 4, we became profitable. And I'd say 5, 6, 7, 8 years. Now we're running a business that's pretty much running on its own. I don't want to get you wrong. Like we're working every single day, but we're no longer having to do the little things like cold calls and cold emails because the constant influx of new clients and prospects is just happening. It's happening on its own now. So I don't think it's come quickly. I think it's been a lot of effort, and I've aged a lot. If you look at a picture of me when I opened the store, I was a young man. Now I'm an old man, so with gray hair. But that's a little bit of the backstory as to, I guess, the steps it took in order to get to where we're currently at now.
For sure, man. I know how that goes when you watch the old YouTube videos, my own channel as well. You see like the business toll sometimes.
Yeah.
Do you want to, because I know it's going to appeal to a lot of people on this call, do you want to talk about this first year or two, like how you went out there, got those initial clients, the approach you're using, what was working?
Yeah, for sure. Like I'm a natural born hustler, right? Like I think my number one trait that I was given at birth was hustle. Because I was never really good at anything. So I always had myself, like I was a participant in everything. So, I mean, put me in track. I was a wrestler. hockey, baseball, basketball, like all at high school level. Wrestling, I wrestled on the Canadian Olympic team, so I brought it to the next point. But I never looked at myself as like a true athlete, because there was always people more gifted than me, stronger than me. But my work ethic, which I'll consider hustle, I think was always unparalleled. Like I was always finding new ways to become better. So I mean, where the average high school student goes home after a long day of school and studies, I'm putting more effort into my sports than I am into my education, because I know that I need more effort in order to compete with people that are better than me. So I mean, in high school, I didn't do too well, but to sort of bring the story all together, it's like when I opened this business, I knew I was not going to be the best web developer. There are better, for sure. Even till today, of course, there are better. But what can I bring to the table that's different than everyone else? And it's literally work ethic and hustle. So like, I've never been ashamed of myself, even till today. If sales are down, I will go out on the street and talk to every stranger. I will hand out a flyer. I will hand out a business card. I've never looked down upon that element of grinding or hustling to get business. I'm the kind of guy that stands in front of my store with a megaphone and gets people into my store, and I have no shame in my game. Mildly successfully, like they have a little bit of money they're making, and when they see me in front of my store handing out flyers, they say, "Chris, you're the owner of this business. You're embarrassing yourself." And I've never looked at it like, man, I'm so passionate and hungry about this business. So going back to it, like year 1 and 2 was doing whatever it took in the world to get people into my business. Okay, knowing that a small percentage of them are going to sign up for the actual service that I have to offer. So in the beginning, my portfolio was very slim. I knew that the average person is not going to walk in off the street, even if I get them into the store and say, "Here, let me sign a contract for a website." So my goal was never to close deals in the first year or two. My goal was to build a brand in the first year or two. So I would do things like free barbecue, where I would just get the neighbors to know I'm there. I would do a lot of charity events, once again, to build the brand opposed to close the deals, knowing that I might meet somebody today, right, in year 1, for example, that might not hire me to year 7 when they actually need my service. And I'm surprised to see how many people come to me after 4, 5, 6, 7 years to say, "I've driven past your locations for 7 years every day, but I never needed your service. And now on the 7th year, I want a $20,000 website." So year 1 and 2, as bad as I was hurting for money, I would never force anybody into a contract that they didn't need. I was not an up salesman. If you come in and tell me I have a $10,000 budget for a website, but you only need a $2,000 website, I'm selling you a $2,000 website. Because my reputation and having a physical brick and mortar was more important to me than any amount of money in the world. So once again, year 1 and 2 was building the brand and brand awareness, especially in the neighborhoods that I opened stores in. But I mean, what was I physically doing? I was going to networking groups. I was going to any entrepreneurship events, like Gary Vee was in Toronto, so I would get a VIP ticket. I think I spent $1,000 in order to get into the back room to meet other entrepreneurs, to sort of network. I mean, when I'm at a restaurant, even till today, or if I'm taking a taxi to the restaurant or an Uber, I'm talking to the Uber driver. I'm giving him some information about what I do. I'm giving him a business card. When I get to the restaurant, if the meal's good, I'm asking to talk to the owner because I want to network with them. And it's not always a sales pitch. It's just like an introduction to what I have to offer in case in the future they're looking for my service. Because here's the problem, right? Like I have physical stores that I work at, and I have like people walking, and I'll call them corny salesmen. They're dressed in some, $50 suit with a suitcase, and they always come in and they start like with this fake smile, like, "Hey, how's your day going?" And all the way, like I'm already putting a guard up because I'm like, I don't need whatever you're trying to sell me. So I've never gone that approach. I'm more so like, let me teach them about my brand. I have no intention to sell them anything, but at least when I leave the establishment, I want to make sure they know a Nerd's World, because in the future, they're going to come back, they're going to call me. So that was year 1 and 2, man. I was putting up stickers on poles. I was handing out, like I printed 10,000 flyers every single month. And I like 4x6 postcard flyers, 2-sided flyers. And I never trusted anybody to hand out the flyer. I presumed if I hired somebody, even a friend or family, they're going to throw them in the garbage. They're not going to put as much effort into it as I deserve and I require. So it would always be me there with somebody so I can sort of watch what they're doing. But a big part of it was literally just getting out and doing print marketing myself. And lastly, reaching out to agencies like ad agencies and other web developers in Toronto. I would just pick up the phone and call them and introduce them. And like I would say, hey, my name's Chris. Look, I have this retail store. We got 10 developers. Like year one, at the highest point, we had 10 developers. And we're ready to do any work that you don't want to do, right? Send us work. Send us any work because we just need work. We need to build a portfolio. And you'd be surprised as to how many people we build great relationships with. And they would, and even till today, they send us a lot of clients. So without doing that, and like, I'm a strong believer in just trying everything possible under the moon, just to see what works, what sticks to the wall for you. And really and truly, not much has changed now, but in the beginning, there was a lot more hustle for sure, because the brand was small, nobody heard about us, and our portfolio was really lacking. So that's very long-winded, but that's a brief background as to what year one and two was.
Yeah, that's super good information, man, and great insight. So for, there's a lot of people who just started on this call recently. So for people who are doing these sort of things, I doubt anyone's doing it on that level, to be honest. So who are doing a portion of this and just not seeing the results, what would your advice be there, just to keep going, to keep staying focused on the end goal?
So let's look at problem solution, right? So a problem is you're not getting new clients. So the solution has to include either your sales pitch is bad, okay, or your portfolio, like you're trying to sell a service that you don't have the experience or the ability to sell. It's hard to be confident in something you're selling if you're truly not confident in yourself. Bottom line, a lot of people don't sell because they're not capable of selling. They're not confident. Or you're reaching out to the wrong people or the wrong time. Let's really dummy this down, right? Like, I'm a strong believer in reverse engineering success. So if I'm Chris and I'm in Toronto and I'm telling you I'm making anywhere from 10 to 20 sales a day, every single day, you cannot look me in the eye and say it's impossible to sell, because I'm proven that I can. And with all the people on this call here, everybody here is making some sort of sale if they're in the business. Some are good sales, some are profitable, some are not profitable, but it just shows it's possible. So, I mean, for that person that keeps trying the same thing over and over again to the same type of client and failing, there's got to be a certain point where you say, I'm hitting my head on the wall. I need to do something different. I got to step out on my boundary. And you know what? Normally, I'm not comfortable walking up to a stranger in a business and trying to tell them about my business. But hey, let me try something different, because the only way I'm going to find out what works for me is try everything out there possible. And you know what? If you're like, some people are really stubborn and they think they know the easiest way. Like, a lot of people reach out to me. If you looked at my DMs right now, I get this message 3 times a day. Chris, I just want to know the fastest way to get new clients. And it's just such a ridiculous question. Forget about fast, right? Like, when you're building a business, it should be building a career for yourself. You're not looking for the fastest way or the best way. You don't need to pick just one way to get new clients. There's 100 different ways to get clients. Try them all, see what works best for you, but just keep trying new things.
I love that, man. So to just kind of take a few points out of that, your priorities was first, year 2, crazy work ethic, guts, going for what you want, relationship building, solid foundation. You mentioned this skill of sales and building your own confidence to back up what it is that you're selling. And
through practice, right? Like, it's not ingrained in us. Not everyone's a good salesperson. So practice. Like, just like going back to my sports example, I wasn't good, so I practiced. So, I mean, if you're really not good at sales, you need to put more effort into practicing. As crazy as it sounds, sit down with a family member on a table, dress up in your best outfit that you're confident in, and attempt to sell them your service. Tell them to contradict come up with tough questions. Ask friends. Like, there's nothing wrong in you practicing your sales pitch to friends and family opposed to practicing with your prospects. Okay, so you're going to get better. The more conversations you have with real clients, you're going to get better. But why not come in with some experience, because you've actually done this process? You've done it with the family and friends. And before I carry on, building relationships, it does not come easy, right? So I've reached out to other companies, web developers, and said, hey, I'm Chris. I own a Nerds World, and if you have any clients, and they've hung up the phone on me, right? Like they're like, get out of here. I'm not giving you my clients. I'm not recommending you. I don't know you. Okay, that's fine. But I'm taking a documented note of that. The time I called, who I talked to, I'm still going to follow up with an email and go along the lines of, hey, I'm sorry, our phone got disconnected. I don't want to waste too much of your time. Here's my company. If you ever change your mind, don't hesitate. Just remember the name, A Nerds World. In this type of thing, especially with agencies, like I've closed some of my biggest deals with agencies that I had contacted 10 times before with no response. But when my portfolio was bigger and better, and I contacted them, with this time, maybe I put together a press kit so it looked more professional than just simply picking up the phone and trying to talk to the owner. That didn't work because the timing was wrong. And I didn't know, but if I would have reached out to the digital marketing manager opposed to the owner of the company, it would give me a greater opportunity of building a relationship. So I don't want you to think that this happens easily. It's like through consistency and following up. And sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to interject a little bit.
It's great, man. No problem. What I'm noticing there is you don't have any shame. So you're seeing what you need to achieve, what the business needs to do, and then you're going out and doing it in a high value way for everyone. But maybe not everyone connects with that, but that's kind of your mindset there, yeah?
Yeah, for sure.
Cool, man. So what do you think makes up that skill of sales? Obviously, it's a lot of micro skills. What would your advice be for building up sales?
I've been a salesman my whole life. So there's been a point in my life where I've always loved sales, period. But there's a point in my life before I opened this store that I was hustling stuff on the street. So I would buy truckloads of stuff and go on the street, literally hand to fist, making money. And I think that was the best way for me to learn sales, because I would sell to people that own Lamborghinis, and I would sell to somebody that just cashed their welfare check. Like I literally treated every client the same. So I think I got good at sales, first because I'm confident in my brand, and secondly, because I've just been doing it so long, right? So for the people new to sales and new to this, like, don't be stressed that you're not selling on every phone call, right? Like, I mean, this is just part of the process. It's not like there's an easier way to get better at sales. You just got to keep practicing, and you really got to know your service inside and out. Like, be prepared for every question. Like, let me tell you something. We could end this call in 1 hour. Every single person on this call could call their friends and be like this, your friends, your family. Set a goal of calling 10 people and say, look, I sell websites. What type, I'd say, I know you're not going to buy a website from me, but what kind of questions would you have about my service? And document it. Like, write it down. Those are the answers to your questions. You got to make sure you have an answer to each of those. And you'll find that out of those 10 people that you reach out to, a lot of the questions will be recurring. It'll be the same questions, like, how much is a website? What makes your service different? Why should I hire you? Those type of questions you need an answer for. You know they're going to come, right? So why not be prepared? And like, hey, I'm old school. I document everything. When I get that question over and over again in the beginning, every question I have with somebody, whether I'm doing it right in front of them or I'm waiting 10 minutes to get into my car after a meeting, I'm documenting it because I know that question is going to happen again. So just be prepared.
Nice. Cheers, man. We had a question recently. I don't think it was last week, but it was pretty recent, and your name came up. We had a student on here, Miles. He's on this call. He was asking about, the systems of web design. I said you'd be the perfect person to ask during this call. Do you want to talk about, in those early days, did you plan from day one to systemize it and hire on staff, or did it kind of evolve throughout that first year? And then a little bit about what those systems are and how you got it going in the first place.
Yeah, for sure. My game plan since day one was, I was a web developer. When I started in Nerds World, I was a sole web developer. Going back to it, I wasn't good. I would consider myself somewhat of a perfectionist, which I think is a real big problem within the web development industry, because I would spend way too many hours and I would offer way too many rounds of revisions trying to build this perfect website for a client that actually didn't hire me for a perfect website, right? So I knew that I was not the best. I needed to hire in-house developers. So we've been in-house since day one. That's been my whole game plan, to be different. Don't outsource the work. And I'm not saying it cannot be profitable outsourcing, because it definitely can. It's just never been my my game plan, right? As for systems, you know, things change. Like, I think a very important part of this industry is building a process. Like, my process is literally step 1, 2. There's like 21 steps in the process. It's documented. It's in front of me. It's in front of the client when they hire us, and we follow that process. So at any point, I can, if a client's like, well, what's the next step? I can call them and say, or email them and say, like, we're on step 12 of the process. And the reason that's great for me is a lot of clients outstep their boundaries as to what they've hired us for and what they think the finished project is going to include. So like, when the rounds of revisions start coming in and they want 17 rounds of revisions, I can very nicely call and say, you know, that process I provided to you the day you signed that contract, okay, we're on step 12. You know, if you can highlight that for me, you'll see this is the final round of revisions, right? And process also keeps me on the ball. It's almost like McDonald's, right? No matter which McDonald's you go to anywhere in the world, right? The food is going to taste almost the same because the ingredients are the same. The process is the same. So, I mean, we have different stores and locations. I obviously cannot be at all of them. I do not touch absolutely every single project, but I want to make sure they follow the process. So that process is in play for all of our team.
And to design that process in the beginning, you went through personally all the different stages, or?
It's a never ending look at building a better process. So, I mean, year to year, it definitely changes. In the beginning, it changed more often than it does now. But in the beginning, it's like, wow, I messed up something. Let me add another step to the process, because I didn't realize it was important until I realized that I'm wasting time on a certain project. So, I mean, my process doesn't need to be everyone's process. What I think you need to do is really dummy it down and understand, like, for example, initial meeting, step 1 in the process, right? Step 2, it could be something like a follow-up. Step 3 could be a contract signed and SOW, right? Number 4, you get a 50% deposit. But once you have it all documented, look, I don't need to look at my process every time, because I've just done it so many years and I've done it so many times. But to somebody brand new starting out, I think they're really derailed by clients, because they'll mess up their process because a client will either like show aggression. So like, if a client picks up the phone right now and Benjamin looks at Benjamin and says, Benjamin, I don't care what I signed in the beginning. I need more revisions. I'm not happy with this ugly website, and do it for free, right? Benjamin says in his mind, well, I'm new to this, right? I want to keep this client happy. I don't want a negative review. I will do more work for them for free. That's what we've all done, no question. And in Benjamin's mind, okay, I'm going to change this sort of negative experience into a positive one by giving free work, free time. And it never works like that. So that round of revision comes down, and then the client says, Benjamin, they won't even say thank you, right? They're going to be, Benjamin, I changed my mind. My friend looked at the site, he hates it. We need a new theme. Let's start again from scratch. And if you don't do it for free, I'm not paying you, and I'm leaving you a negative review. And Benjamin says, shit. Okay, let's do another theme. And it becomes this recurring just bullshit, right? You hate your job, you hate your life. You're like, why did I get into this career? And the only issue is because you haven't stood your ground and you don't have a process, okay? And it's not always the client's fault. Often it's the web developer's fault. Because if you don't set out the boundaries of this relationship before you commence the deal, it's your fault for not setting out those boundaries. The client wants, in their eyes, what is the perfect website, and I don't blame them for it, okay? I blame myself for not outlining what I'm responsible for based on the price that they're paying. So bottom line is this: no matter how much money you need, how much sales you need, you haven't eaten in a week because you're broke and your rent is past due. You do not take on a project until you both have an understanding of what your responsibilities are, what the process is, okay? So blame yourself. And I don't want to, like, there is absolutely websites that I've taken on in my early years that I've lost a lot of money on. And I've built a bad reputation with some clients because after the 18th round of revision, I put my foot down too late, right? When you have a process in place that you're confident in, you put your foot down the moment they try to outstand those, like the boundaries are slightly off track. You got to jump in and be the referee and be like, I appreciate you as a client. I'm really working my hardest on your project, but you're outstanding, like you're outstepping the boundaries in which we started this relationship, right? So that's, once again, a long-winded answer as to the importance of a process. And if you guys don't have a process in place, or it's only in your mind right now, today's the day to actually put an actual process in place, knowing it's not going to be perfect. It's going to change and alter with time, but having that process, and once again, sharing that process with your client.
I love that. So to follow on from that, what advice would you give to people on this call to get started today with a simple process? Because 21 steps is going to sound a bit intimidating.
The easiest way, and some people might consider this cheating, man, reverse engineer success. Like, you guys, if there's 21 people, 28 people on this call, or join a forum, guys, what's your process? What's your 1 to 10 step process? Take it and make it your own. Like, customize it to suit your own needs, right? You don't need to, it doesn't have to be something brand new, right? It just reverse engineer success.
Perfect. We got a question here from Connor. How do you approach the pricing side of a project, part of your process, or just in general?
It's altered in time, right? Like, when you have a poor portfolio or a limited portfolio, you need to price accordingly. If you're overpriced or underpriced, both things are very bad. Listen, if you underprice your service, you're not going to get good clients, right? It's going to drive, like, your mindset. Look, in the beginning, Facebook showed, like, 10 years ago today, this is what happened. Yesterday, I took a print screen of 10 years ago today. I was offering $500 custom websites, right? Turnaround time was within 7 days, or the website was free, right? Now I think about that and I'm like, I was crazy. Like, how was I offering that service, a completely custom site, for $500 within 7 days? So, I mean, your price goes up as your experience goes up, right? If you want to know how you should come in with pricing, it really comes down to if you have a portfolio or not. If you don't have a portfolio that's worthy, I'm the strong believer of you sell your service at whatever you can get. You need a portfolio. Without the portfolio, you're going to be stuck in mud for a long time. If you have a decent portfolio, once again, reverse engineer success. I call all my competitors within my area, find out what their price points are, and I want to be somewhere around there. I don't want to be too high, I don't want to be too low. But keeping in mind that, like, if you're like me, I show my pricing on my website. The reason is to sort of filter out those that are just fishing. They need to know what my price points are. And there's a level of honesty when you have upfront pricing, I say. Like, people call me and be like, well, Chris, I know I want to work with you because you're the only company that has upfront pricing on your website. But I don't want you to make, like, my pricing varies. If I was hurting for sales right now, I would jump on my website and change the price points. I would go lower, right? As we get really busy, it goes up. So I would say a couple times a year, depending, like, COVID is definitely a reason that other businesses could lower their prices. We haven't, but I mean, it's been, if you looked at it year to year, the price has gone up year to year. As to where to start, you got to look at what your competitors in your direct neighborhood are charging. Because if you guys are located all over the world, it's not like I can say you got to sell a 5-page website at $1,000, because it really depends on, your cost of living and your expenses in your business and etc.
Cool, man. Highly agree on pretty much everything you're saying there. We do have a different approach with pricing, so I'm curious about that. I've always priced the client and the problem, and what budget or what amount would make sense to them. So with your fixed price approach, when you see someone who maybe just is a bigger business, they got more revenue, it's a bigger problem, are you adjusting your pricing there, or offering potentially more to solve the problem, or how do you adjust for when you see the opportunity?
So it depends on the level of business, right? So for example, like Toyota, we're working on Toyota's website. We've been working on it for about 18 months. It should launch in the next week. When a company like that comes to us, they have to do the enterprise level. So they have to do the most. We're not giving them a template website. So I mean, most often what happens is when somebody calls us, they haven't chosen which package they want. We have the low price, we have the medium, we have the semi-expensive, and we have the really expensive. So when people come to us, they tell us their problems, we look at the size of their business, and based on that, we recommend a package. So I mean, we definitely recommend towards the level or the size of their business. Do you get what I mean? If Nike calls us today, we're not giving them a WordPress template. We're giving them the higher price points.
So your pricing, even though it's fixed, it would come towards the end of the sales, discovery period where you're finding out everything, looking at the information.
It depends, because there are people that want to pick up the phone and just call, and within 5 minutes, they want to know where they sit. So we'll ask them, okay, have you looked at our pricing? Yes or no? And they'll say, yeah, I've looked at it, but I have no idea what a bronze, silver, and gold is. So I would do them like one of two things. Well, what price are you looking to spend on this project? Very important, just to ask them their budget. Secondly, if they don't know, hey, can you show me a website or two that you like on the World Wide Web, just so I can get a good grasp as to what you're looking for? Also, is there any added functionality to the site? Is it a promotional site? Are you selling something? Are there any custom calculators or contact forms? Like, tell me how it's going to work. And normally on like a 15-minute, 20-minute, I'm getting a pretty good idea as to what this client is looking to spend, even if they're not going to come out and just tell me the number. Right? I got to explain to them, like, look, I'm not your enemy. I'm not going to base my price on what you say, right? But just like going to a car lot, or if I hire a real estate agent to say, find me a new house, they're going to say, what are you looking to spend, right? So I need them to understand that you need to give me some kind of idea as to what you're looking to spend. And I don't want to waste too much time. Like, if I have a 15-minute call and it happens once a day where the guy says, I want to build the next Facebook, and his second sentence is, well, my budget is $400. I don't want to waste any more time with them, because I know I'm not going to convert them into a sale, right? So I need to get to know them fairly quickly. The actual price quote comes in an email format, but the phone call is normally just to learn a little bit about the business and what they're looking to spend.
Great, man. We got a bunch of questions here. I'm going to get to them just after one more thing that you mentioned. You've mentioned the portfolio stage a couple of times, building that solid portfolio that shows you can solve problems, achieve good results. Do you just want to talk a little bit more about that? Because that's a big part of our program. Our approach is having that solid portfolio first before you go cold calling everyone, halfway across the world. That's
the answer. Try cold calling people with a poor portfolio, or your own website's ugly. It's going to be difficult to sell. You're going to be wasting a lot of time. I'd much rather dedicate that time into building a portfolio. So in my eyes, like, what is a good, well-rounded portfolio? A few different industries and a few different looks. I don't want the website to look all the same. I don't want to pick the same theme over and over again from a WordPress because I'm comfortable with it. Because your portfolio should be diverse. So when I'm building a portfolio, if I was starting again today, I would write down like 5 professional industries, and I would target them specifically with a highly discounted price. Like, I want a lawyer on my portfolio, right? I want a dentist or doctor on my portfolio, some sort of education on my portfolio, and definitely an e-commerce shop on my portfolio. Now, I know that's easier to say than to do, right? There are going to be dog walkers that come in and say, I want a website. You're not going to turn them down, but if I'm targeting certain industries, I want to get it as diverse as humanly possible. Because when somebody contacts you for a little startup business and they've never done this before, they want to be confident in your ability. And when you can say that you've worked with a local law firm or doctor, it adds credibility to your name, and it's going to make it a lot easier to close deals in the future.
Nice. So a big part of that, to boil that down, is you're looking for people who they themselves have a lot of trust and authority, and you're getting connected to that.
For sure.
Cool. Let me roll back through these questions. We got a couple here from Daniel. Chris, did you used to do fulfillment, and now do you only brand building and sales? At what point did you decide to bring on someone to fulfill for your client projects, and how did your roles change?
Sure. So when I started in Nerds World, it's been about 10 years, 12 years. I was doing this from like the basement, not the basement, but an apartment beside my bed, a desk beside my bed. I was taking on like 1 client per month. I was doing it as a little side hustle to make money. When I opened a physical store 8 years ago, the day that we opened, we had a developer. So since I opened physical stores, I have not done any fulfillment at all. Today, I have a wonderful team of developers. My role right now today is sales and SEO strategy. So I'm the one taking all calls related to SEO. My wife does all calls for websites. She manages the websites. I manage the SEO. When a client hires us, for example, yesterday I sold 2 packages. I'm the one that does the keyword research. I do the strategy, and I hand the strategy as a document, custom strategy, to my team, and they actually do the work. So I'm really not doing any fulfillment at all. I'm answering emails and making sales.
With that in mind, so what skills do you see for people just starting off who have to do everything themselves in the beginning? What
Yeah.
skills do you think are the most important that then transition later to also being a business owner?
I think just being open, like the day-to-day activity as a developer, it needs to make you a smarter and a better, a more productive person. Okay, look, like when we all get into this industry, we all make the same 10 mistakes over and over again. Like the smart individual is the kind of person that says, okay, on the 10th time I made the mistake, it's time for me to alter this path and try new things. That doesn't mean quitting the industry. It means like get better at your craft as you continue, right? Everything is broken down to a price point. Somebody's hired you for a price. You need to understand that your time is somewhat limited if you want to make this a profitable experience. So I think you just get better at it over time. But I mean, if you're starting an agency, for example, or even you're a freelancer, sales and communication are hugely important. You know, the ability to build a website is first and foremost. If you cannot build a website, that's what you should be working on. But once you're good at building websites, start dedicating time and education into communication and sales.
Just with that as well. So when you say build a website, what do you think are the most important skills for building a good website that gets, that works?
I'm a strong believer in like understanding UX and design as well. Like a lot of developers build ugly websites. I don't want to offend anyone. I'm sure some people here have built and are building ugly websites. I would really just, right? A lot of developers focus on code. What I would say is dedicate some time, like YouTube is a perfect resource to start looking at some UX and UI. Understanding like if you want to make yourself a multifaceted developer that's going to stand out in the crowd, understand design and like just style, right? Like have some style to you. Don't be like nerds, and developers are known as building ugly websites. So, I mean, that's what I would focus on. You want to be somebody like, that knife, like the Swiss Army knife that has all these different tools. Don't focus on one thing. Bring that design aspect. And if you're not willing, or you just don't feel like you have good design, you're not willing to dedicate time, definitely partner up with somebody that has that design sense so that, when you're building a website for a client, even if you're hiring them, say, hey, let me hire you for 2 hours, go through my design and tell me everything I've done wrong so I can fix it. And there's nothing wrong with that as well. But those are my ideas.
Sure. In the first year, did you also study like copywriting or things like what did you study on top of design?
Like SEO, I've been doing SEO for about 15 years for myself. I've owned businesses prior to this. So I've always been learning. I've gone the route of learning through making mistakes. So like when I do SEO, I do it on my own website and I do case studies to see what works best. Now, YouTube has grown to the point that it's at right now, the last 3 years. I definitely duck my head in and look and listen to what other people are saying, and I learn along the way. I think I'm good at UX and UI just because I've been viewing websites so long. Like I've been reverse engineering, like for fun on a Sunday, I would sit down and look at the 10 most profitable e-commerce websites, look at the website and really break it down in my mind. Like, why is it as profitable as it is? Is it the color of the buttons, the placement? Hey, they have upfront pricing. I'm seeing a lot of recurring themes, right? So that is something I'm going to recommend to my clients. So it's not like I went to school. I've never gone to a class for web development. I've never done an online class for web development. I taught myself how to do it. And I think style is something that if you look at enough good, profitable websites, you can understand that there are common threads, and that would make you a better person. And let me tell you, you'll be more confident in recommending it to your client. Because if you have an ugly website, how the hell is the client going to listen to you when you give advice on style? It doesn't make sense, right? So first and foremost, practice on yourself. Make your website look good and beautiful, and your clients are going to take your recommendations more seriously.
Nice. It seems two common trends there, but kind of everything you're talking about that I've completely forgot what I was going to say. You backwards engineer success with everything. And then you practice a lot before you kind of step it up and start pushing it out there.
Practice on myself, right? See what works. Yeah, for sure.
Cool. I'm going to catch up with these questions a little. We got a bunch here from the students, if that's all good. Benjamin's asking, the guy who called out, Chris, how do you connect to these different industries when you're at the portfolio stage?
Like, I'm a physical guy. I like to walk into the location. I know COVID right now is somewhat limiting, But I mean, instead of me just going to a stranger, I go to my doctor, I go to my dentist. They already have somewhat of a relationship. They let their guard down a little bit, right? Like every week, even during COVID, right? I'm a restaurant guy. I go to restaurants. I went to 2 restaurants yesterday, 3 the day before. You know, if I'm gonna have any alcohol, I'm Ubering, and I'm meeting people. Like literally, I'm meeting people. So I mean, I'm interacting with the people I'm already gonna interact with. So I have my little sales pitch or promotion. That's the best way, because you know, my dentist, I sold him a website. I wasn't too shy to tell him that I offer my service. So I mean, in the beginning, especially, I'd say my first 10 projects were friends of family or people that I dealt with, like my barber shop, my local butcher that I go to every week to get food. That's who I sold to, right? But don't pick and choose as to how this is going to happen, because everybody's going to have their own route to success. But like, put yourself in their shoes for a moment. Okay, your phone rings. Hey, do you want to buy a website? You're going to hang up the phone too, right? So I mean, build a little bit of a relationship before the sales pitch. That's what my recommendation is. And unless you're a hermit that lives in your house and never leaves outside, you do have people that you deal with on an everyday basis. You're just not, maybe you're not confident in your ability yet, or you don't want to ruin that relationship. Could go back to the confidence in your ability. You're like, how am I going to sell them a website? If they don't like the website, I'm never going to be able to return to my dentist or my doctor. So, I mean, it's about reaching out to the people that surround you and just getting that first, 5 to 10 good portfolio pieces.
Cool. Along with that, from Joachim, if you're having trouble getting portfolio projects, would you go as far to make a website for imaginary businesses to show what you can do?
Worst case scenario, yes. What I don't like about that element is you're not communicating with anyone, because it's fake, right? So I mean, it's like me playing me in chess. It's better than nothing, but imagine I have to play and then I have to go on the other side and so you're not really in a game. But I mean, is it better than nothing? Yes, for sure. If you've tried everything else and you've tried your hardest and you cannot even give away your service for free to build a portfolio and you have no other options, yeah, for sure, build a few fake websites. Just at least you're showing your ability.
I love it, man. What you're saying, a lot of it lines up really, really close to what we teach in the program, but I'm trying to, when I ask, I don't want to put words in your mouth either. So it's cool to see that we're thinking similar stuff. A question here from Thori. So when you hired your first developer, how financially prepared were you for it? Was it more of a risk, or did you have a large savings along with a secure stream of leads beforehand?
No, never. I took risk. I had no money. We probably could have lasted a month, without making a sale before we would have to get rid of the team. I've always done things like ass backwards. We didn't have a big savings at all. Everything was risk. But I'm like, once again, going back to it, I'm not shy. I don't have a great relationship with my parents, but I have no shame when I started my business. If I had to call my mom or my sister to be like, let me borrow $1,000, that's part of the process, right? So, I mean, there were times in the first year where sales were horrible. I didn't want to fire anybody. So I would call my mom like with tears in my eyes and be like, Mom, I need $800, hold whatever. Here's a watch I have, a Movado watch, hold this watch. And if I don't give it to you in the next month, you can just sell it and get your $800 back. Like, I did whatever it took to survive, period. To go back to it, day one, when we had a team, our team was like 2 or 3 people on day one. We needed to sell in order to survive, because I didn't have a lump savings. We had no game plan. I have no line of credit. I had credit cards. I didn't spend 1 penny on credit. And the reason I went that route is because I knew nothing in the world was going to motivate me more than working with a team of people, knowing they depend on me to get out, and I'll bust my ass, because like, I'll sacrifice my life. When I mean my life, I mean, I'm not going to die, but I mean, I don't need to eat 3 times a day. I can eat once a day, and I can dedicate 15 hours, 18 hours a day into promoting and selling my service. So no, nothing was pre-planned and nothing was organized. And most people that have never gotten to business think this is the wrong way to go about it. They think you should secure a line of credit. You should have $100,000 in the bank in a worst case scenario. Let me tell you something. The laziest business owners that I see go out and start a business with a big loan that they have to pay back with interest. If you're borrowing money from somebody else, you're not going to work as hard as if you know that if you, like, for example, year 1, month 3, If I don't sell a website this week, I'm going bankrupt. Guess what? I'm going to get my ass out and I'm going to do what it takes to sell that website. And I might surprisingly not only sell one website, I might sell 3 or 4 because I've been put into a corner. I'm the type of person that performs best under pressure. So I actually encourage pressure. I like setting timelines that are sort of out of the reach from other people. It's not for everyone, no question, but it's worked well for me.
So I would say logically, everyone on this call would agree with you, but emotionally, obviously there's something there that pushed you to do that because it's going to suck, severely in moments. So can you talk a little bit about like the core motivation behind that? Because that's super, super tough. What was pushing you through that? What was, driving you to take that level of risk?
Stubbornness, man. Like, I just never want to fail. I never, ever want to fail. And like other people, like going back to sports, they'll say like, Chris, it's just a game. Okay. The whole concept here is to have fun. I don't believe in that shit. Like if I'm doing something, I'm doing it to win. I'm very competitive. Look, I have 3 kids in the house, right? If my youngest daughter says, I want to have a dance competition right now, I'm dancing to win, like period. Because I just don't like being a loser, right? So, I mean, that's really and truly the answer. Like what motivated me, I'm scared of one thing in the world. It's failure, right? The last thing I ever want to hear from anybody is them to look me in the eye and say, Chris, you started this business. I told you it wasn't going to work and it didn't work. Like I have nightmares about that. So, I mean, my parents, once again, were never great supporters of my dream of being an entrepreneur. I've been an entrepreneur my plus years. I've had multiple businesses, and they've always been the type that said, Chris, I love you, but you're choosing the wrong route in life. And those type of quotes resonate in my mind. And when I'm having a shitty day and sales are bad, I can see my little dad's face in the corner of my head saying, Chris, you're going to fail. And that kind of shit that's what motivates me to push on and to prove people wrong.
I love it, man. I'm going to again, we got a lot of questions here, so I'll try catch up
problem.
and just let me know if you're getting kind of tapped out on time.
I'm ready. I'm ready.
Okay. Torsten's asking, Chris, great insight. Did you reach out to general marketing agencies to get subcontracted web work, or was it kind of white label work for online agencies? So I guess, were you reaching out to take some of the work that they didn't want to take, or were you reaching out to do some of their work under their kind of name?
The perfect answer is all of the above, right? I'm not a niche developer. It's not like I have to do only white label or I only have to deal with marketing agencies. I dealt with everybody. But I mean, when I'm starting out, because I'm a physical guy, I feel like I have a good aura and like I have octane to my, I don't know how to put it, but I hear it all the time. Like it's real. So, I mean, how did I start? I reached out to ad agencies and said, I'm going to be in the neighborhood. Can I pass by? Because I always feel like I perform better in person. Right now we have Zoom and stuff like that, which gives you an almost in-person meeting. So, I mean, I reached out to all of them. Ad agencies were always the most successful for me. Like an ad agency is the type of agency that they're all thinkers and no doers. There's a bunch of people sitting around the room thinking of good marketing ideas, but not knowing how to actually do them. Those are the people that were most successful for me. But I mean, reach out to everybody. A marketing agency, for sure. Reach out to anybody that you can.
So hustle, and if there's money on the table, take the money.
Hustle. And there will be money on the table. There is money on the table. It's just about getting in front of the right people at the right time. Cool.
Isaac's asking, what's the biggest reason someone would choose to work with a Nerds World as opposed to another company? That's a really cool question.
Well, I can't speak from a client perspective, but what do I think makes us different? We've never outsourced. I think that's huge. I hear it. It's over and over again. Like they hate sending their stuff to India. They want to hire a Canadian. We're in Canada. I hear it all the time. There's a lot of pride in that. We're within locations and neighborhoods in Toronto that are somewhat famous. So like, for example, one location's in the Annex. So, I mean, people in the Annex want to stay within their community. They like it that they can walk from their house and meet with us and have a conversation. I think that's pretty big. We call like our quote is like the neighborhood nerds, which sort of is all encompassing to whatever neighborhood we're in. We don't sell our service. Okay. So there's no, like, I'm not a believer of pressuring somebody into submission. I hate that type of sales pitch. So, I mean, if you walk into one of my physical locations and I'm working, it's going to start with an introduction, like, hey, what's up? How's your day going? And there's never going to be a point in that conversation, if it's a 10-minute talk or an hour talk, that I'm ever going to pull out a contract and be like, time is limited. You need to sign this contract now. I'm the best at what I do, and we're the best. So that sales pitch has never worked for me. Even, let me tell you something. When I needed money in the beginning years, you would think that I would do whatever it takes to close deals. But I had that set in my mind that I'm not going to take on a project that I'm not going to bring something to the table. So, I mean, if somebody came into me year one and said, I want this ridiculously large custom site and I'm not capable of it, as perfect as that $20,000 sounded, I'm not taking it on. And I think a lot of people appreciate the fact that I'm not money driven, like I'm success driven. And I know people can say that, but I don't believe everybody believes in that. So that's something I think a lot of our clients or prospects say that they truly appreciate. And having physical locations, last but not least. Like when you have a brick and mortar and it has your brand, it has a big sign, a Nerd's World, on the front of this store, people know I'm not going anywhere. There's this stigma with web developers of you're going to meet them at a coffee shop, give them 50%. You're going to have to knock on their grandparents' house to find them. You're going to be searching for them. They're not dependable. They're not reliable. They don't meet deadlines. Like, this is some of the words that I hear. But when you have a physical location, people know where to find you. There's a confidence, even if they don't look at my portfolio, right? There are some websites I sold without them looking at my portfolio. They walk in my location and say, you know what, the atmosphere is good. We actually make, like we do bakery. Every store has an oven. So we cook cupcakes and cookies for the clients. And there's a thought behind that. It's like, what more welcoming than walk into a location that smells good, smells like home. So, I mean, that all comes down to building a confidence with a prospect and a client that I think makes us a little bit different. And lastly, like, YouTube has been wonderful, right? When I started my YouTube channel, it was like, the reason I did it truly was because when I finished the project, I got tired of repeating the same thing with the clients. Like, hey, you want to build a successful e-commerce? Here's my story. I built a multi-million-dollar company. This is what I did. And I hated talking about myself. So I'm like, let me upload this video. And when a client's done a project, I can just send them the video. And if they're interested, they watch. If they don't have to watch. And now it's grown into much more, right? So I've talked a lot, but I think those are a bunch of things that make us different.
What's really cool there, man, is you have the work ethic, but it's also abundance mindset. It's not like work ethic and you're desperate, where it's like, I'm calling everyone and I got to get a deal. You're still looking for the right people, the right deal, what's high value for them.
But I don't want to make it feel like I take on difficult projects all the time. If I know we're capable of doing it, it's not like I'm only looking for easy. But what I want to be just 100% upfront with, I'm 41 years old. My plan is to own a web development company until I retire, or like until my kids take over the business. Like, I'm not in this to make money and leave, right? I'm trying to make $100 million a year selling websites. So, I mean, I need to build a reputation that makes sense for my brand. It's not a quickie. I'm trying to build a relationship, right?
So just to work back on those figures, because you look a lot younger, actually. I didn't know your age. So you started around 31, 32?
Somewhere around there, yeah.
Yeah, cool. That's my age, so it's cool to see the progress over 10
years. I was an entrepreneur prior. I've owned a sneaker store prior. So I opened my store when I was around 22, 23. So I've gone a bunch of different routes in order for me to find the place which I'm most happy right now.
Cool. I mean, there's a lot of people, not that it's a big deal or anything, but there's a lot of people on the call who are in their 20s or early 30s. So it's cool to see that you made so much progress in 10 years. I'm going to run through the final questions that we have here. Benjamin's asking, when the client is a small business, how do you manage expectations and tell them that the website cannot do all the heavy work and that getting traffic is a completely different thing than creating sales?
Easiest answer is be honest. Be honest and have it documented, because everyone's expectations are going to be different. And when I mean documented, I mean it has to be written. When you verbally explain something to someone, they're not always going to listen to every word and understand every word. And even their expectations based on a conversation are tough. So, I mean, document it, have it in written format and provide that to the client. Straightforward. If somebody hires me, like, if you go to my service page and see the price points, if somebody hires me for a template website, I don't want them to expect anything more than a template website. Because as hard as this sounds, clients will say, well, Chris, I hired you for a perfect website. No, sir or ma'am, I appreciate you, but you hired me for a template website. And we hear it all the time. But the idea, once again, going back to like our original conversation, it's about outlining that relationship in the very beginning, right? I have no problem. Clients, prospects will reach out to me and say, Chris, I want a 5-page website. Your price is the same as your competitor. It's pretty close. I really like you, but the competitor is going to include free SEO. And yours doesn't mention SEO. Will you do free SEO for me? And my idea is now I have to educate the client as to what does that mean? And is that other competitor truly giving free SEO? What does that mean, SEO? Like, did they click a button to say that they've included? I just don't get it. So the client has to understand that there's a difference between building a website. There's a difference between content creation and copywriting. It's completely different. SEO and generating traffic to your website, social media marketing is different as well. Do we do it all? Yes. Is it built into the package price? The answer is no. But if you sort of hide from the fact that that's the case, it's your fault if the client has expectations that are unrealistic based on the price they're spending. It's because you shied away from it, because you were uncomfortable. And I get it. Like, when you're trying to sell a website and you need that money in that sale, the last thing you want to bring into a conversation is no. Oh, no, I won't include that. When the client says, well, I want you to do all the copywriting because I'm a bad writer, in your mind, you're like, well, I could do it. I do need the sale, but you've already outstepped the boundaries, and that expectations. Like, have a clear outline exactly what you're going to do at a certain price point. I'm a strong believer in having an SOW, a statement of work that outlines exactly what the scope of this relationship is, and you give it to the client before you start. So it's most of the time it's the developer's fault, not the client's fault for having great expectations.
So think long term and build that relationship proper, not just whatever gets you the deal, but what actually is going to,
honesty.
Yep.
Explain to them what they're going to get.
Cool. I think there's 2 more here, if that's all good. Questions.
Yeah.
Asmat's wondering, what are your tips for choosing a brand name? So obviously a Nerds World is pretty unique and pretty catchy.
Yeah, I think just don't be cookie cutter. Like, a lot of companies all sound the same. You can't remember it. It's not a brand. I want something like McDonald's. McDonald's is a brand. It doesn't have to say hamburger or something in the title. Like, everybody's looking for something that says web development, web design company. I want to build a brand, a memorable brand. So I'm not really giving the answer to the question because I don't have the answer. I'm old school. I opened up GoDaddy to see what domains were available at .com. And I just started spitting off ideas, and a Nerds World came to me like within an hour, and I purchased it. So that's how it worked well for me.
Cool, man. That's it with the questions. I don't know. Is there anything else you want to add in? I'm really, really happy with how this has gone. It's super valuable information.
I appreciate that. Thank you for the opportunity.
Cool. Guys in the chat, if you want to say thanks, go for it. Chris, again, thank you so much for taking the time. And yeah, hopefully we can have you on again sometime. Obviously, I'm not trying to get you to commit right now, but it would be cool to have you back.
Anytime I'm here. I'm heading to your neck of the woods next week. I'm going
Poland?
To I don't know, maybe Poland. I'm starting in Albania, and I'm seeing where the wind blows me.
If you want to come up, I'm in Gdansk. Well, I'm moving to Sopot in about 2 weeks. Really, really nice spot, and there's spare space in the house. I don't know if you want to stay with me, but it's a cool spot.
We might bump heads if I'm in Poland, but I'll be in your region in about 10 days.
Dude, for sure, drop by. Cool. Thanks a million, man. It's always great to chat, and it was really cool to have you on. So thanks.
Guys, I hope you have a wonderful day.
Cool. Thank you.